Actually, I used to teach at Edison High School here in Stockton. I'm a native Stocktonian, and so I had this young person in class who I got along very well with, and we ended up finding out that we were related to each other, which was really weird.
Wow.
And so I was teaching her drama, and so she started writing plays, and this is one of the plays that she wrote. It is also going to be presented at the with a different group of people at the Hagen Museum for Becky Fitch McCarthy's The Status, who knows the name, the technical name, the status of women, status on women, yeah, at the Hagen in March.
Suffragists would speak to voters in the streets and from automobiles.
They held mass rallies, picnics, and small meetings.
They addressed congregations, unions, factory workers, women's clubs, and any audience they could find.
One of the most popular opening lines to address the crowd was, "I appeal to you as..."
I appeal to you as a teacher.
I appeal to you as a mother.
I appeal to you as a worker.
I appeal to you as a human being.
We, here and now,
Appeal to you
As the forgotten.
The forgotten suffragettes.
today, we appeal to you as women to remember the mothers of the movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, and Lucretia Mott are the names you've heard over and over again.
Under their leadership and other women's rights pioneers, suffragettes circulated petitions and lobbied Congress to pass a constitutional amendment to enfranchise women.
Their sacrifice and fight lasted for their entire lifetimes. However, they were not the only ones to fight. History has forgotten or ignored all the woman warriors for this great battle.
We appeal to you as women of all walks of life to not forget all the mothers of the movement.
I appeal to you as an African-American woman to remember Ida B. Wells Barnett. Born in Holly Springs, Mississippi, Ida was one of 8 children. When she came of age, she attended Rusk College, the historically black liberal arts college in her hometown. Wells was outspoken regarding her beliefs as a black female activist and faced regular public disapproval, even including other leaders within the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement. She was active in women's rights and establishing several notable women's organizations. A skilled speaker, Wells traveled nationally and internationally on lecture tours. Ida B. Wells' most important stand for women's rights to vote occurred at the March 3, 1913 National American Women's Suffrage Association, NASA parade in the nation's capital. NASA was the national umbrella organization for state suffrage affiliates. The primary goal was to enfranchise women, but NASA did not always embrace all women. When it came time for all the women to march, the African American women were instructed to gather as one unit at the end of the procession because integration was forbade in the march. The Illinois branch of NASA was integrated. Ida wanted the Illinois group to show the nation that it was progressive enough to stand against the hypocrisy of oppressing women because of their race, while embracing the idea of equality for all women at the ballot box. Her pleas, however, fell on deaf ears, so she didn't march. Ida B. Wells left a legacy of protest activism and social and civic endeavors. She exposed the horrors of lynching to a national audience, inspired hundreds of women to enter into the public domain of politics, and confronted the dualities of race and gender discrimination that African American women faced. She was one of the founders of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Wells arguably became the most famous black woman in America during a life that was centered on combating prejudice and violence, who fought for equality for African Americans, especially women. There were so many brave African American women who fought for the right to vote in the South, only to be met with years of oppression. Still, I ask that you don't turn your head away at the ugliness of the truth, but embrace the battles that still need to be fought. Thank you.
I appeal to you as an Asian American woman to not forget Dr. Mabel Pingwa Lee, who at 16 led the New York City Suffragettes 1912 parade on horseback. Wow. 10,000 people attended that parade, and the New York Tribune wrote an article about Mabel before the parade. The article highlighted her academic accomplishments and her desire to improve the lives of women and girls. Lee started her studies at Barnard College in New York City that year. She wrote an essay 2 years later called The Meaning of Woman Suffrage, where she argued that suffrage for women was necessary to a successful democracy. She wrote, I cannot too strongly impress upon the reader the importance of this consideration, for the feministic woman movement is not one for privileges to women, but one for the requirement of women to be worthy citizens and contribute their share to the steady progress of our country towards prosperity and national greatness. Women won the right to vote in New York State in 1917. In 1920, 100 years ago, the 19th Amendment gave women throughout the country the right to vote. But not all women in the United States benefited. Chinese women, like Mabel Lee, could not vote until 1943. And this was because of the Chinese Exclusion Act. So, a federal law in place from 1882 to 1943. The Chinese Exclusion Act limited Chinese immigration and prevented Chinese immigrants from becoming citizens. And without U.S. citizenship, Mabel Lee could not vote. Yet she and other Chinese suffragettes advocated for women's voting rights, even though they did not benefit from the legislation. By fighting for the rights of others, Mabel Lee wasn't complying or submissive to authority. She wasn't obedient. Instead, her behavior showed a new high moral standard. She paved the way for a new virtue, just like all the women who stood up and demanded for the right to vote. She was courageous. I ask you not to forget Dr. Mabel Lee and other Asian American women who fought so others could vote, even if it meant they didn't have an opportunity to vote in their lifetime. Thank you.
I appeal to you as a Mexican American to not forget Jovita Hidar, who was born in 1885 in Laredo, Texas. Her father, Nicasio, was a newspaper editor and a civil rights advocate. From an early age, Hidar was exposed to journalism and political activism. Hidar wrote an article for La Crónica supporting women's suffrage and encouraging women to vote. Hidar and her brothers began to advocate for women's rights and continued to write about women's suffrage in a positive light. Hidar, 1911, founded and became the first president of La Liga Femenil Mexicana, the League of Mexican Women. This feminist organization started their activism by providing education for Mexican American students. A few years later, Hidar decided to go to Mexico to take care of the injured during the Mexican Revolution. She served as a nurse and eventually joined a group similar to the Red Cross. Jovita returned to Texas and began working at El Progreso newspaper. The paper was a source of news and activism for Mexican American rights. Hidar often wrote articles speaking about racism and supporting the revolution in Mexico. The United States Army and the Texas Rangers did not like that she spoke out, so they went to the offices of El Progreso to shut it down. When the Rangers arrived, Hidar stood in front of the door and would not let them in. She stopped them from shutting down the paper that day. Educate a woman, Hidar often said, and you educate a family. She became active in politics, established a free kindergarten, and continued to write and promote social justice. I ask you to know who Jovita Hidar was. Know that there were and are Mexican American women just like her, still fighting for the rights of women and for our First Amendment right, free speech. Thank you.
I I appeal to you as a woman of the LGBTQ community. Lillian Faderman, author of To Believe in Women, What Lesbians Have Done for America, A History, explained. It was generally considered an insult by the straight world, and probably in the lesbian world as well, to publicly identify someone as lesbian or homosexual, or whatever the term was at the moment. So these relationships have generally not been acknowledged. But the evidence is there. And it's clear that we finally arrived in a time where these romantic relationships can and should be acknowledged. Carrie Chapman Catt was president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association and was instrumental in finally getting the 19th Amendment passed. Catt's life partner, Mary Mollett Garrett Hay, was president of the New York Equal Suffrage League. During that time, women who were committed to one another felt that they were not just fighting for themselves, but also for their beloved. They have more at stake and more to gain. Another couple in the movement were Anna Howard Shaw and Lucy Anthony, good friends of Catt and Hay. Shaw, a physician and one of the first ordained female Methodist ministers in America, served as president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association for over a decade. She was so critical to the cause of suffrage and so widely beloved that after her death, the New York Times compared her to Abraham Lincoln in a eulogy. Lucy Anthony, yes, Susan B. Anthony's niece, supported Shaw in her work and helped organize international support. Now, other leading suffragettes are classified as bisexual, including Isabel Howland, Harriet May Mills, Frances Willard, Alice Stone Blackwell, and civil rights pioneer Jane Addams. These ladies' romantic love for other women empowered their fight for equality. Love was the fuel for the entire suffrage movement. I ask you not to forget or marginalize these women for loving with everything they had. They loved with a love that changed the world 100 years ago. And it's that same love that keeps opening doors for everyone. Love is love, and love got women the vote. Thank you.
Ladies, if you'd be so kind as to allow me to address your crowd.
Please do.
Thank you. I appeal to you as a man who comes from the West, California to be specific, who has seen firsthand the tough-as-nails women that come from here. Please do not forget that there were men, entire states of men, like Wyoming in 1869, then shortly Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Washington, and of course here in California in 1911, that saw the need, no, the human right that these women deserve to have a vote in our country, that they helped to build. Furthermore, it wasn't the big cities that voted for women. It was the rural communities in the valley, in the foothills, and the farmlands, the men who worked this land that voted. John Hyde Braley in Pasadena, businessman and organizer for political equality for the Political Equality League, who at a rally asked the men of California the following. On October the 10th, you will have the opportunity of granting to women the privilege of expressing through the ballot their wishes and needs as to the conditions under which they shall live. If you love justice, you will grant this, for it is just. If you trust women, you will grant this. They are worthy of your confidence. If you want to put your power into the hands of the people, you will grant this, because without it, democracy is impossible. Through the vote of their organizations, 100,000 women have said they want it. Unnumbered thousands more desire it, but are silent through the lack of opportunity to speak. In the name of these, we beg of you, men of our state, men of our town, give us justice that we may work together for the welfare of the child and the advancement of civilization. It took men who were willing to listen to women, seeing a need for change, then forego the social standards of the time and use their rights to vote to make our country astounding. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
We believe in inclusion matters more because together we are stronger. Together, we need to vote.
People are still being denied their rights to vote in this country. Vote so you are heard.
It's up to the rest of us to pick up where the suffragette movement left off and see that all Americans vote. Vote to honor the past.
Change is still needed. We have to get everyone to the polls.
Your vote matters, so vote.
I will vote to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment and to ban child marriage at the federal level.
I will vote to continue to fight for equal rights to voting and access for all.
And
I will vote for health care for all because we deserve to live long, healthy lives.
I will vote for immigration, that people can come to the United States legally and apply for citizenship so that it does not put a strain on our country.
And I will vote so women can do what they want with their bodies, because as a man, it's none of my damn business.
I appeal to you as family, as a friend, as an ally, and as a community volunteer. Please vote.
I appeal to you as a proud mother, community advocate, and activist. Please vote.
I appeal to you as a proud Asian American woman. Please vote.
I appeal to you as a proud Mexican American woman. Please vote.
I appeal to you as a man who believes in equality and justice for truly all. Please vote.
We, here and now,
Appeal to you as
The forgotten suffragettes.
Please vote in this 2020 election, not only to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment, but because we all owe it to those who came before us and fought so we all could have a say. Thank you.